Artificial intelligence is here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Daniel Lopez. This is the AI Education Conversation, where we explore the opportunities, risks, and the impacts of AI across education. Let's jump in. What's up, everyone? Hope you're in good spirits as we approach our Thanksgiving break. Today's episode is going to look and feel a little bit different from the many conversations we've had before. For one thing, you can see me, and I'm going to be showing some screenshots of a lot of the information that we're going to talk about today. If you're on the road listening, it's all good. As always, I'll do the best I can to voice over everything that we have. But if you are in a space where you can look at some of the graphics and some of the websites that I'm going to be posting up, I think it's going to enhance your experience for this particular episode. So let's start with a little bit of context setting. 1 year ago, OpenAI made a big breakthrough in the progress of AI when they introduced ChatGPT to the mainstream public. And as you all know, it caught wildfire, right? Since that time, they've amassed 100 million users. They continue to build exciting features, which also have the potential to disrupt a lot of the fields. I've started a podcast because of the experience I had first using ChatGPT and how I thought it had the potential and capacity to also change schools. Now, their success in this initial beta has also triggered, as we've all seen, this AI arms race, where we're seeing a lot of big tech companies, many other businesses continuing to just race to deploy new AI tools and integrations. Today's episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened last week with the company who really did a lot to bring this to the mainstream media, OpenAI. So in the last week, OpenAI, they held a public dev day where they announced some new features and new products 1 year from when they first launched ChatGPT. And the thing I really wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive on today and share some thoughts on is what they announced as GPTs. Some folks are saying that this has the potential to be the next big breakthrough in AI, especially for schools. And so, with that being said, I'd really like to just share more about what they announced, walk through what GPTs are, and share my honest perspectives with you all on the opportunities, the risks, and just like overall review what I think about GPTs so far. Since again, many folks are suggesting this could be the next big breakthrough. So let's start first with their announcement. So if you look at this page here for ChatGPT's website, you notice that they have this page called Introducing GPTs, where they're essentially saying that you can now create custom versions of ChatGPT that combine instructions, extra knowledge, and any combination of skills. That's essentially what GPTs are. They have essentially framed it as it is your opportunity to be able to create your own chatbot, your own chat GPT, if you will, based on the knowledge, the interests that you have. And you can kind of see here on the page, right underneath the headline, they're highlighting some of the initial GPTs that OpenAI have created to give folks a sense of how you can use this. So one example here shows creative writing coach. I'm excited to read your work and give your feedback to improve skills. Laundry buddy, ask me anything about stains, settings, sorting, and everything laundry. Tech advisor, from setting up a printer to troubleshooting a device, I'm here to help you step by step. Sticker whiz. So again, not all of these are text-based chatbots with some of the great tools that ChatGPT has added over the last couple of months within their ChatGPT chatbot. We now have image generation, right? So Dolly 3 is now integrated within ChatGPT, whereas before with Dolly 2, you had to go to like a separate website, enter prompts just to get images. But now, if you want an image, you can get that within the same ChatGPT prompt that you're asking. So, this will become a little bit clearer in a second if this is your first experience using chatbots or interacting with AI here. But you can see here for this Sticker Whiz one, it'll help you turn your wildest dreams into die-cut stickers shipped to your door. So again, you can, I would imagine, enter some keywords, or there's probably a very specific way. It's going to ask you some questions, then it's going to help you to produce some images and some stickers at the end of that. So this is what they're showing us at the beginning here. And as you can see, now they shared quite a bit of updates related to what GPTs are, what their purpose is, and what they're really hoping to get out of it. So as I just described, as they're saying here, since launching ChatGPT, people have been asking for ways to customize ChatGPT to fit specific preferences in the ways that they use it, and that makes sense. I mean, that's something that I know I've been looking for as well, and a lot of folks who've spent a lot of time using chatbots are interested in, because right now the alternative to GPTs is you may go into ChatGPT, you may have like an existing line of questioning you've asked it, and you may have been able to quote unquote like do some of that training yourself already in within one specific line of questionings or a prompt that you've set up, but it looks and feels a little bit different to what GPTs are intended to be, right? GPTs are intended to be a space where a lot of folks have done some of that training, that fine tuning, given some of that context knowledge uh, related to the very specific task or the specific field that it's supposed to address. And it's supposed to cut out a lot of that, right? Some of that initial prompting, some of that initial training once it gets up and running, right? Once you've been able to do a lot of it and get it working the way that you want to work. They also made another significant update besides the launch of these GPTs here. And before I get to the GPT store, which I wanted to highlight here in a second, I wanted to talk about just the other implication of GPTs and why I think there's a significant effect which may take place here. So up to this point, beyond ChatGPT, as we know, there's a lot of AI products that have started to hit the market, right? Some of them being like integrated tools that some popular companies are adding, right? So boutique companies like Canva as an example, or Adobe, or even like Khan Academy with Conmigo, right? They've all added some AI integration, and a lot of them have chose to do so through chatbots. There's like other features that they've done it, but some through chatbots. Now, the challenge up to this point is if you have been somebody who was actually like really motivated or excited about trying to take your idea and trying to use AI to employ whatever idea you may have, especially as it relates to schools, is if the features within ChatGPT weren't sufficient for you to be able to enact your vision for how you would personalize your own chatbot, or how you might customize uh, the prompts or the product that it spits out when somebody types it in, you would basically have to use you would have to have more technical background to be able to set that up, right? You would have to go into ChatGPT, take what's called the API, which is essentially this like code that you would then plug into a website, or you would plug into an app, and then you would have to do a lot of fine tuning and training on your back end within your website, within the data set that you kept to be able to do this. So overall, that process is just a lot more complicated, right, and sophisticated than what GPTs allow anybody to use. Right now, you can essentially do something very similar to that, but you don't have to create a website to do it. Right? You don't have to, maintain your own data set. It's very easy to do fine tuning and training within the way that they've set it up on the user interfaces. I'll show in just a minute here. So that I think is one huge pro. It really just like lowers the entry fee, if you will, for folks who maybe have a great idea as to how this tech could be implemented to help make the world better in some way or serve a need without having to have all that technical expertise. So they also mentioned here a couple of other updates. They're going to be rolling out a GPT store with this. And so a lot of folks that I've listened to on other various podcasts have essentially described that this is going to be very similar to like maybe an app store, where a lot of folks, as they continue to develop their own GPTs for different interests and different ideas, they're going to be able to publish those. And eventually, they're also, as it says here, there's a line about you're also going to be able to earn money based on how many people are using your GPT. Doesn't give us a lot of context here as to what that's going to mean or look like yet. But again, you can think of like your Apple or your Android app store there and how that looks, and imagine something similar here with GPTs. So that potentially creates an opportunity for folks to monetize like really great products that they've created, really great GPTs. And I think it also hopefully creates an opportunity for folks to just push the envelope as to what these tools can do. And I'm also hoping that in the context of education, we see some really great GPTs that folks, instead of having to create their own or have their own idea, they could just go into this GPT store or marketplace and use somebody else's, right? Who's spent a lot of time training it, fine tuning it. So we'll have to see what that looks like as it rolls out. But that also is something that I'm very much piqued my curiosity as we talk about GPTs. The last thing that I think I wanted to really highlight for the context of this review was the privacy and the safety piece. Because as you all know, especially as we talk about AI within the context of schools, I think it's very important that in any of those spaces, as there are additional guardrails being placed for privacy or for safety, that we're at least monitoring those and we're starting to understand what those are. You can see here that they have a pretty a large section describing their privacy and safety protocols related to GPTs. Specifically as it says here, it says, as always, you are in control of your data with ChatGPT. Your chats with GPTs are not shared with builders. If a GPT uses third-party APIs, you choose whether data can be sent to that API. When builders customize their own, that GPT can be used to improve or train our models. And I'll actually highlight where those features are in a second when we talk about how easy it is to create a GPT and at least get one off the ground. Literally takes less than 2 minutes to probably create something. Now, it doesn't mean it's good, right? But you can create something within 2 minutes here, and I'll highlight some of those privacy features and where they live there. They also continue to say, these choices build upon the existing privacy controls users have, including the option to opt your entire account out of model training, right? So basically, I think what they're saying there is, regardless of you using other folks' GPTs, you can always within ChatGPT hit the setting that exists in your user profile, where basically it doesn't save any of the conversations that you have before. It doesn't save any of that. And I think the idea there is, there's nothing essentially to refer to that is training the model and doing it there. So it sounds like that if you have that feature linked to your account, you can still use that feature even when you're using these GPTs. They also continue to say, we've set up new systems to help review GPTs against our usage policies. These systems stack on top of our existing mitigations and aim to prevent users from sharing harmful GPTs, including those that involve fraudulent activity, hateful content, or adult themes. We've also taken steps to build user trust by allowing builders to verify their identity. We'll continue to monitor and learn how people use GPTs and update and strengthen our safety mitigations. If you have concerns with the specific GPT, you can also use our reporting feature on the GPT shared page to notify our team. So again, at a high level, I think given that GPTs in some ways are a step closer towards like really trusting the AI to do a lot of things without being driven by a user, privacy, safety, right? Really monitoring how people are using as they're describing here is going to continue to be very important, because I think one potential trajectory that this leads down, which even OpenAI alludes to here, is that GPTs will continue to get more useful and smarter, and you'll eventually be able to let them take on real tasks in the real world. In the field of AI, these systems are often discussed as agents. We think it's important to move incrementally towards this future, as it will require careful technical and safety work and time for our society to adapt. So they're even naming it here that they think this is one step closer to, for lack of a better term, we'll call it AI autonomy at this point, because that's really what an agent is. And later in this review, I will actually talk a little bit about agents, and I will recommend, I think, a great resource to learn a little bit more about this if you're interested in really understanding how GPTs might be one step towards that. And again, where we really need to keep our, our guards up towards AI agents, especially within the context of education here. So this is the update. Now, in practice, what does this actually mean? Let's talk about that a little bit. So if you go to the ChatGPT website, you will have a view that looks like this, right? I'm going to move my camera here just a second so you all can see it a little bit better. You'll have a view that looks like this, and on the left here, as always, you'll have the many chats that you may have engaged in, and normally it looks like that. So again, anybody who's used ChatGPT before, this is going to look very familiar. The part that is going to look a little bit different are these tabs at the top here, where there's a section now that says Explore that has 4 little circles where you can explore different GPTs. If we hit that, it takes us to a page that looks like this, where it'll show you any of the GPTs you've created or you've recently used. It'll then also show you any of the GPTs that have been created by OpenAI. So essentially them trying to start to set up a little bit their so-called app store here. And again, you can see some that look pretty interesting to engage with. I haven't at this point engaged with all of these different ones, but I have spent probably about 10 hours trying to train the one that I've created that I'm prepared to show you today, as well as just in interacting with some of the other ones that I saw other folks publish here. But these are some of the ones you could see. Mocktail mixologist. I'll make any party a blast with mocktail recipes with whatever ingredients you have on hand. Jen's for meme. I'll help you understand the lingo and the latest memes. So again, a lot of different use cases here. Not all of these, professional or academic. Some of them just intended to be fun and interesting too. So when you go there, I first want to just show you, just so that this is a little bit clear, the difference between how this might look if I put in a prompt on regular ChatGPT versus what it looks like on my GPT. So I spent about probably 10 hours since this has come out, um, developing a GPT I called Word Dash. And essentially, just to give you a sense of my vision for this, my vision for this was that this could be a GPT that a teacher throughout schools could use. Really, my target audience was probably grade 5 to senior high school seniors, and the idea would be that, in particular, for language arts teachers, your history teachers, but really for any class, that they could go into Word Dash and they could hit a button, and then when they hit that button, there would be essentially a quick write prompt, a really engaging, interesting, and ideally every time you hit it, a very diverse type of quick write prompt that students could then respond to in 15 minutes or less. Just in my experience as an English teacher, when I was doing it in my previous life prior to the time I've spent in college access, what I found is I really enjoyed doing a quick write multiple times a week with students. But man, sometimes it was really hard to think about those prompts because you want something to be really interesting, something that really engages their creativity and allows them to think about it in a different way. So I wanted to see how AI might help us automate this process. So now instead of thinking of something, I could just hit a button and I know I have a really great quality prompt that students can respond to. Um, so I want to just show you what happens when I hit that first, and then I'm going to compare that to what happens when I engage with traditional Chat GPT, right? Not Word Dash, my Word Dash GPT, but traditional Chat GPT here. So if I hit Word Dash, it'll take me to this. Now, as you're looking at this, and again, if you can't see it and you're listening and follow along with us there, it looks very similar to ChatGPT, right? It has the same user interface. Some of the differences are though that in the front there's like a small little logo. In this case, my logo has like a notebook with the pencil and some ideas in there. It says Word Dash, and it has like a little tagline which says Daily Creative Writing Prompts for Students. At the bottom though, it has like a little search bar where you could type in messages there, very similar to what you can in with ChatGPTs. But here it says Message Word Dash, and right above there's actually these small little bubbles. And I only have one bubble, but you can actually link more up here, as I'll show you when we try to create a new one, to be able to do some, to basically give ideas for how you can engage with this GPT. So if I hit ready, set, go, you notice it already sets that prompt, it goes, and Word Dash, you'll notice, is already starting to think. And we're waiting for it to think here. We're waiting for it to think. And you'll notice now that the next thing that popped up is a little small purple icon that is starting to buffer in, and it says searching my knowledge. The reason that it's doing that is because it's doing a couple of things. Number one, it's potentially referring to some of the data that I tried to fine tune this on. I did actually upload Common Core standards from just U.S. education standards related to writing to like try to help give it some additional ideas of how to do it. We also noticed that now that in addition to that, it's also doing a buffering again, and it says creating images. And that's because I prompted this as well, that any single time it gives me a prompt back, I want a reference image that students can look at in addition to the prompt, so they have a visual that they can attach this to. So this will give you a sense in just a second here. You'll notice it takes a little bit longer than what it does when you just type something into ChatGPT, and that's because there's a lot of different parameters and text and engagement that I've done with this. And so now you can see here it's starting to produce this. It has an image. This image here shows kind of what looks like a little Hansel and Gretel type cabin in the woods, a lot of animals in front, and it's starting to type the prompt here. And it says here, for your writing prompt, imagine yourself in this enchanted forest. You come across a small inviting cottage amidst the vibrant autumn colors, friendly woodland creatures, each glowing with a touch of magic, accompany you on your journey. What kind of magical adventures await you in this serene setting? Write a story about your enchanting encounter, the creatures you meet, and the mysteries the cottage might hold. Remember, in this magical forest, anything is possible. So really my vision for this was that if I'm a teacher, I might be able to, just share my screen at this point, show students this prompt, and then say, okay, like you have, 10 minutes here to write this. I want you to look at this picture. I want you to think about this. Like what's happening on your journey here is you just met all these animals and you're going through this thing. Give them an opportunity to engage in some creative writing as you do this. So some of the things I really like about what I've been able to do thus far, I like that I've been able to get Word Dash to be able to produce an image and the prompt at the same time. As simple as that sounded, it was actually very difficult for me to figure out how to prompt and instruct it correctly to get both of those things happening at the same time. I've actually seen this with other people's GPTs as well, where instead of those things happening at the same time, it like spews out a bunch of text. And then at the end it says, and now I'm going to produce an image, or it'll say, would you like me to create an image based on this? But it's not at the same time. And I think for me, it matters that it's at the same time, and we're engaging in this as quickly as possible. I also really love that teachers just have to hit a button to do this, right? There's not a bunch of additional things that they have to do. They don't have to say, hey, I'm thinking of this, or, it needs to be appropriate for this. It's really just hit a button. It gives you something you can work off of here, right? The other piece of this that I added, which right now it's not really showing up correctly, so I may have to at some point go back in and see if it's has received my instructions correctly, if it's still doing this. But I did instruct my GPT to also be able to add a sentence at the end of their prompt, so it says, hey, if you'd actually like some specific feedback or some ideas based on the quick write that you wrote, feel free to like upload your response here. And my vision for that was, if you were a student who responded to this prompts and you were excited about it, or maybe wanted some feedback, teachers could take some of the responses that they had uploaded here, and then ChatGPT would now offer feedback. And then I gave it some very specific parameters on how I wanted it to give feedback. I essentially said, hey, like no more than 1 to 3 grammatical or syntax things. I don't want you to give a lot of feedback there. I want you to really give a lot of feedback or reactions to the ideas, right? Give them a sense of their ideas or questions. And that was some of the specific parameters that I put in there, right? So this is what a GPT can look like, right? Like I said, do I think this is perfect? There's still a lot of things that I think are quirky about this, and I would improve even with Word Dash here. I think specifically, some of the things beyond what I already mentioned around the feedback thing not showing up correctly is, initially I also put in a prompt where it would actually ask a question before it gave you the prompt. So when I say ready, set, go, and click that button, it would then say, hey, super excited to give you a prompt. Can you tell me what grade level this is for? Right? So that way they can put, oh, this is for 5th grade. And then it would incorporate that when it was providing its prompt. Or if it's, obviously an 11th grader, those prompts need to look a little bit different, right? So that's something that didn't show up this time around. So, and again, I need to just kind of investigate why it didn't. But I think there's a lot of potential here. This feels very exciting for me. And again, if I were to try to do this with traditional ChatGPT, essentially what I would have to do, right, is I would probably go to ChatGPT, which, I can kind of click on here. And you notice it looks very similar, right? But instead of having Word Dash at the top, it just says, how can I help you today? It says message ChatGPT. So I might, put in a prompt, something like this. I might say, I would like a quick write prompt that takes no more than 15 minutes for a classroom of 6th graders. And I might start there. I mean, I could add some other instructions. I could say, I want the prompt to focus on setting and include a wizard. And there might be some other things I put, but again, that just gets us going here. And again, that you can see the response that it provides here. ChatGPT, relative to the other one, says, here's a quick write prompt suitable for a classroom of 6th graders, focusing on setting and including a wizard. Imagine a world where magic is real and wizards roam the lands. One day you stumble upon an ancient, mysterious wizard in a unique setting of your choice. Describe this setting in detail. Is it a bustling city with magical floating markets, a quiet, enchanted forest filled with talking animals, or a mystical desert with hidden oases? Think about the sights, sounds, and smells in this place. How does the wizard interact in this environment? Write a short story about your encounter with the wizard in this setting. So, and then again, you can kind of see it provides some more of that like meta responses that my prompt doesn't do, because I've really instructed it to cut out a lot of that. So it's just the prompt. We got it. We're writing, right? But the next part it says is, this prompt encourages creativity and descriptive writing, allowing students to explore their imagination while focusing on the importance of setting and storytelling. The time limit of 15 minutes will challenge them to think quickly and concisely. So when you look at that prompt, I mean, it's not horrible, right? I think it's a solid start. I think it's very similar in some ways to the prompt that I have, but there's a key difference. There's a couple of key differences there, right? Number one, I had to type more words to get it to do that. Number two, there's no picture associated with this one like there is for the other one. And we know for some of our students, they might be visual learners, and having that additional image to be able to like really understand and process that prompt might really support that. I also think that just like the overall tone of the first prompt, where, it's including statements like, remember, in this magical forest, anything is possible, and then includes a couple emojis at the end. Just the overall tone is a little bit more engaging. And I think accessible for students. Whereas again, for the prompt that I just adjusted here, and granted, I mean, this didn't take long to do, right? I spent, probably 25 seconds developing that prompt, which I just mentioned, and it gave a sufficient prompt. But this is where I think, again, when you look at the differences between ChatGPT and GPT, this is where the real potential is, right? It's going to take you some significant amount of time on the front end to be able to develop this, get it to happen in the way that you want it to happen here. But once you do, I think there's real potential to create very high quality prompts and responses towards the task or the buttons you might develop or the directives that you set, that are like of significant quality because they have the context, right, for the specific area that you've trained it on, that traditional chat gpt just doesn't have. So now I want to just for a second here talk about how you can create a GPT, because being able to do so is easy, but like I said, I think to make it good, I found is a little bit more difficult. I've spent time interacting with other folks, GPTs here, and I think again, you are going to have to put in some time to be able to make this significantly better than what the traditional Chat GPT answer is going to give you here, because you can get something of comparable quality pretty quickly, as I just showed here. But just for a second, let's go back to the Explorer, and when you do, you're going to notice that there's a tab plus sign there that says Create a GPT. So I want to very briefly show you in like 2 minutes here how you can create a GPT. So let's say I hit that. The first thing it asks you is on the left here. It says, "Hi, I'm a GPT builder. I'll help you build a new GPT." You can say something like, "Make a creative who helps generate visuals for new products," or "Make a software engineer who helps my format code." What would you like to make? So just for the sake of this example, let's say that I'm interested in creating a personalized fitness app which creates customized workouts for individuals of different body types, and yeah, we'll just start there. We'll start there. Creates customized workouts for that. So I would enter something like that. And what's going to happen is when I enter that prompt, GPT Builder, it's going to be showing that like purple little buffering circle, which I described when I was using Word Dash. And it just says updating GPT right now. Essentially what it's doing is it's taking this prompt that I put in, and it's starting to fine tune. It's starting to develop where they think some of that knowledge that they have within the broad data set that is ChatGPT can fill this in and create something like this, right? So it's doing some work in here. And so now it just said GPT behavior updated, and it's responding to me. Great choice. How about we name this GPT Fitness Coach? Does that sound good to you? Fitness Coach is kind of basic. I mean, I think we could do better than that. Let's before we jump too far in, let's say, I think the name is too plain. Let's make it catchier and emphasize the weight loss. No, let's just start there. Let's just say let's make it catchier. I mean, again, you can do more. You can say, "Hey, I want to include these specific words," or "I wanted to really make people think about this when you're doing the name." I probably spent way too much time, to be honest, thinking about the name and the image when I was doing Word Dash, but let's see what it comes up with. So it responded, "Understood, let's make it more exciting. How about FitFlex Guru? This name suggests a blend of fitness and flexibility expertise. What do you think?" Okay, I mean, I think for now that's okay. So we'll say, sounds good, and we'll move on to the next step. And so now GPT Builder is doing the next step of generating a profile picture. So in addition, once it's developed, the tagline for your GPT, it's developed the name, it's now going to develop a picture that it's associated with this. So we'll see. And again, it's using DALL-E 3 to do this, which is exciting. So all of this now just lives within, the same chatbot. So as you can see here, the image that it developed a very colorful image of a figure that is showing all of the muscles within the figure in a sprint form. So and there's just kind of a lot of colorful patterns behind it. So I think it's a little bit too distracting. It's asking me now, here's the profile picture. Would you like to make any changes? I'm going to say, let's make the color palette simpler. and emphasize the fact that technology is supporting workouts. Let's see what it says. I'm curious what it says with that. So now this is how I responded. I'm not going to do this too many times because, again, I just want to give you all a sense of how this works. I get real picky when it comes to some of these things, and I can really get into the wormhole on this. But just to, again, give you a sense also of how you can engage with these GPTs to really make sure that it's meeting the vision that you had for this GPT, which is really what this is all about. So right now it's rendering a new profile picture related to what I just talked about here. So it's attempting to make a simpler color palette and showing the tech. I like it better. I think it probably could continue to improve, but for this one, if you can't see it, it's the same kind of running figure in a sprint form, but their background now, instead of being like multicolored and very bright, is more so white. Looks like there's kind of a circuitry board layout over the entire thing, including within the figure. So I think for now it works. We'll say it looks good, and now we can move on. So it looks good. I tried to. I'm typing looks good. Let's see. What do you think? Would you like any further adjustments? I think it's because it's still updating GPT. So once it updates, I'm going to type let's good, and then we should be able to move on to the next set of questions here. And so the GPT behavior just updated. Now I'm going to be able to respond with looks good. I think I am. It's not allowing me to do it here. Okay, there we go. Now it's starting to type here. It says, now let's refine the behavior of FitFlex Guru, starting with the role and goal. How should the workout plans be? Do you want them to include specific exercises, durations, and rest period, or should they maybe more general guidance? No, see, and see, this is the part of the GPTs I really like as well, which is once you go through some of the name and the images, it's now going to ask you like very specific context questions related to your product. And a lot of them, again, you see are very thoughtful questions, like based on the product that I've just described thus far. Clearly, it's very important to know should the plan be more focused on an actual plan, or should it be more about strategies and guidance here? So it's continuing to update it. Now this is a little bit strange. It's continuing to. I'm gonna hit pause for a second here because it's updating this, but I wasn't hitting anything. You all saw that too, hopefully. But what it's doing is it's adding a series of questions based on things that it thinks I should do, right? So what may have happened there, since I was typing sounds good and I was hitting something and it had an update yet, it might have been taking some of those cues. So normally, again, what will happen is you will be able to go through these questions a little bit more specifically, and you'll be able to offer thoughts. So in the first one, as an example, I may have said, actually, I do want it to include a very specific daily plan with exercises, duration of the workout, and rest periods versus general guidance. The next question it just asked me was, next, let's talk about FitFlex Guru. Should it emphasize or avoid in certain interactions? For example, should it avoid recommending certain types of exercise or equipment, or should it focus on specific fitness philosophies? This is a very similar question to the other one. What I would probably recommend here is, no, I think you can recommend specific exercises or equipment. I would probably also say, let's add the caveat that if someone says that this exercise hurts or is too uncomfortable, they could also type in, can you suggest a different exercise for this one? And so I would maybe add a prompt so that it knows to add that type of line anytime it's specific, recommending the plan as well. So as you can see, in addition to the two questions that it just asked, it's continuing to update GPT. And so I'm just waiting for this rendering to go through here. And as it goes through, it should continue to just ask me questions that will allow me to fine tune what this looks like here. So we'll see what happens as soon as this purple rendering goes down. Now, it can take a little while to launch your GPT depending on how complicated what you're asking it to do is, right? So, Word Dash and a quick write prompt relative to a personalized workout plan, there may actually end up being a lot more questions or fine tuning that it wants to do before it feels specific to launch. So depending on how simple the task is, how simple the scope of work is, right? If you're asking it to do a very simple directive task, you likely can again, launch something like this very quick within a couple of minutes, especially if you're not giving it a lot of feedback versus something that there's multiple steps involved or requires large data sets, which is really where I hope this goes, right? My vision is that I'm going to be able to create some GPTs within to support schools and really to support students going through the college going process as well. And that's going to likely be complex and require a lot of different um, data sets and different protocols that have to be set up here. So I'm still waiting for this updating to set up here. While I do, let me flip real quickly to the top of this page, which shows configure, because there's a couple of other settings there that are worth noting and highlighting here. So when you go to configure, you can adjust the name of your GPT here. You can adjust the picture. You can adjust the tagline. There's also all the instructions that it's working off of are in very thoughtfully categorized in a box here. So right, and for the one that we're designing here, Fit Flex Guru, it says the GPT is designed as a fitness assistant specialized in creating personalized workout plans for individuals with different body types. It understands various fitness levels and body types, offering tailored exercise routines and fitness advice. There's a couple of other sentences there, but you get the general gist there. Underneath that are those conversation starters that I was referencing. And when I say conversation starters, that's the section where you have a couple of different bubbles that will pop up above your search where you can click that instead of typing something in a prompt, and it'll give you some thoughts there. I was really excited by the conversation starters, to be honest. I think some of the GPT that I created with Word Dash and thing, my vision was to get away from prompts, to like not have to make folks like use prompts when they were engaging with my GPT. Hopefully, just being able to hit a bubble and like getting some thoughts there. So you can do it however you'd like, though. So you can change the sentences here. You can choose to delete some of these if you'd like. So those are some of the options that exist with there. The next piece is you could also upload files. So for this specific context, if I wanted to upload some health guidelines from the CDC or some other health organization, if I wanted to upload some fitness and training plans that I've used before, if I wanted to upload some case studies, maybe about folks who've lost a lot of weight, folks who've gained a lot of muscle over different time periods, all of that information ideally should be used to train this GPT. And then you'll also notice beneath that, it shows the compatibility. So if you check web browsing, it essentially means it allows your GPT to search the web for answers related to some of the questions that may come up. And then DALL-E image generation, as we know, it means it allows you to produce images related to some of the prompts that come up. And then beneath that, related to the privacy piece, you'll notice there's an add actions piece. And under add actions, if you have any specific APIs, you can add that there. There's a specific privacy function though that I wanted to make sure you all saw as well, because that's where it lives around here. Let me just. So it might be on the other tab, or maybe it's waiting for me to publish it. But I also know that function that we had read in the updates here around, do you want to be able to use conversations from people who are using GPT to train it? So if you uncheck that, it basically means when folks are engaging with your GPT, it's not going to use any of their questions, their inquiries to train your GPT. But if you want that to happen, if you want your GPT to continue to become more enhanced based on the directives that it's receiving from folks engaging, you could leave that unchecked. So I thought that it was there, but it looks like it might be in a different part. So we're continuing to update the GPT. To be honest, this is a little bit different than what had happened before. Normally, once it asks you a couple of specific questions, it'll just move on. I don't know if there's a bug or something happening here, but this is definitely weird compared to what happened when I was doing Word Dash. So we'll see what happens when it updates again here, if we're in a position now where we can keep this moving here, because I want to jump into my final takeaways related to GPTs now that I've highlighted it a little bit. I'm going to give it 1 second to check, and if not, again, generally, I think you get a little bit of the gist of this. Probably the only last thing I didn't highlight related to this is in the top right corner here, when you have your GPT, you can go to save, and you'll notice that it gives you a couple of different options for how you can save this. And this is where there's some potential benefits and opportunities created as well, right? So you can save it and choose to publish it to only me. So I'm only the person who has, so right now, Word Dash is an example. This is the function I have it under because I wanted to do testing and training first before I had it. You can do it to only folks with the link. So this creates some opportunities for an internal use case. So let's say, as an example, for me, one of the most obvious use cases of GPTs is being able to create a co-pilot, if you will, or an assistant for just information exchange within teams or within schools. So I can imagine a world where you're taking a lot of your big agendas or your rubrics or your policies or your school hours and those things. You're uploading those documents into that configure data section that we talked about here. And then you're creating some prompts where folks can now ask very specific questions such as, hey, what time does school end? What's the next upcoming holiday that I need to look out for? What's the next professional development day in the school? Again, the nice thing about ChatGPT is it engages in multiple languages as well. So if I wanted to, if a parent, as an example, decided to ask that in Spanish, or if you found a unique way that you could create a GPT and then you administered the link to your school community and you mentioned, hey, if you have any questions about our student policies, our holidays, our professional development days, school ends, anything like that, you can ask questions there. So there's a lot of potential, I think, to create operational efficiency, communication within some of those things, and within some of the published settings that we have here. So high level, again, this is what it looks like. For some reason, it continues to update this. I've never seen this bug before, to be honest. So I don't know what's going on with this. I don't know if it's just because I don't have a name. Maybe if I try to put the name back, it'll work here. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with that. So if we do that, it says updating. But anyways, you get the point. I'm just gonna, for right now, go to only me, confirm. And again, it's a personalized, tailored assistant. So that's generally how GPTs work, right? I kind of showed the example there. And again, if you're interested in showing more, you can go to explore. You have these. A lot of folks on LinkedIn have been posting their little GPTs and things that they've been creating. Real quickly, just to highlight maybe some of the bones of Word Dash as I was describing. When I go there, as an example, just in case anyone was curious how that might look different from the one I did for FitFlex. When I go there and I go to configure, you'll notice that it looks a little bit different from the other one. As an example, there's some additional capabilities that I've set up. As I mentioned, the conversation starter, I only have one. You notice, again, it has the high-level directive prompt. I've also uploaded some documents that I wanted to refer off of. So in this case, the Common Core ELA standard is what I've uploaded. And then in addition to that, this is the function that I was mentioning to you all. So for some reason, I'm not sure why it didn't show up in that FitFlex Guru one we were trying to create. But here you can see it within Word Dash where it shows additional setting. Use conversation data in your GPT to improve our models. You can uncheck it or check it, right? So in this case, I decided to check it. But, to be honest, it could be either way. I don't think for the context of this GPT I've created, it matters too much here. And again, you can go to publish it anyway. At this point, I could probably make it public if anybody's interested in messing around with it. Definitely invite you to do so if you're interested. And there you go. It's called Word Dash. Go check it out. So let's briefly just talk about high-level implications here, and what this means for this. So we've talked a little bit about ChatGPT, introducing GPTs. At a high level, what I wanted to spend a little bit more time discussing was just my high-level review opportunities, things I think are coming up there. So high-level review, what I would say is, my initial thoughts, just spending about 10 hours playing around with Word Dash, trying to fine-tune that, engage with that, as well as interacting with others. It's I still feel like GPTs are pretty mediocre. And what I mean by that is when you look at the difference between the product that you're getting between a GPT, even one that's fine-tuned, right? Clearly I spent a lot of time with Word Dash trying to fine-tune and enhance that. But I still don't think it's light years above what you can get from traditional Chat GPT. That being said, I don't think that we're going to live here forever, right? I think as things continue to develop and folks get a lot better at prompting, which I hope happens from this. I hope that there's an additional wave of folks who've never tried messing around with ChatGPT before, and they hear about these GPTs, and because of the way that your line of thinking works here, where now you can think about it in regards to a specific topic or issue versus just having this all thoughtful chatbot, may give you some ideas within a very specific field that may help folks improve their ability to do prompting and training. I'm also hoping that over time, again, OpenAI continues to just improve their technological capabilities. So right now, as an example, there's caps on GPT-4u. So after playing around with Word Dash for about 2 hours. I got capped. So I had to wait like a whole nother day before I could continue to play around with it. And it still wasn't working the way that I wanted it to work. So, and then in addition to that, I think again, just like continuing to expand on some of these capabilities, such as being able to produce multiple images and text in the same response. So, as an example, if you wanted to produce a picture book and you wanted the entire picture book from consecutive characters, and you were able to set up and fine tune. Right now, it's very difficult to have it produce multiple images consecutively alongside text together. So being able to do that within some of the same prompts, I think there's just ways OpenAI can continue to support the development here as well. So, but let's talk about the opportunities. Let's lean into that for a second. Now that we've spent some time exploring and analyzing this here. So I think opportunity number one is that even in the rough draft form of these GPTs, like I mentioned, it creates another opportunity for people to engage with AI and learn how to prompt. I think on the one hand, you have your early adopters like myself who have already spent a lot of time engaging. It gives us an opportunity with some of these new things, like being able to fine tune and train, to like really advance our skills, to go from like maybe average to like proficient now, or like expert level. And I think for folks who've never engaged with this before, gives you an opportunity to go from like beginner to proficient. And so I think the way that they've set this up, it really hopefully will get more folks interested in developing their skill sets here, because I think being able to feel comfortable doing some prompting and having some familiarity with this seems like it's going to be an important skill moving forward. Though granted, technology continues to evolve, and we don't know what prompting or how that might continue to get easier over the next year as well, given how fast things have continued to change. I think the second opportunity here is that, assuming improvements continue to be made, the personalization aspect of this, right? Combined with the fact that OpenAI now allows you to publish and share your GPT with others, means there's an opportunity for schools in particular to create ongoing companions to enhance the educational experience, right? So up to this point, as I was mentioning, the only way that we really got education specific AI tools was because there was a lot of companies or individuals out there with some technical prowess where we're be able to take the API, and overlay their training and skills now to do that. Now anybody can do it, right? Because of how easy it is to set this up. And I think the piece that makes me really excited about that is, over time, hopefully it allows us to create what, or at least get closer to what folks have called this like secret walled garden approach, right? I think up to this point, a lot of folks have mentioned that having AI connected to the internet and having it have a really broad data set where it may be prone to model drifting or hallucinations, or some of those things are really threats to having AI be implemented into schools. But now, if you have these GPTs that are like hyper focused on specific tasks using specific data sets with a lot of the specific context that you've built, hopefully it really allows us to create very specific efficiency, operational tools, and chatbots that help schools across the board. So again, as I'm thinking about it, I really see opportunities for GPTs to there being like a school-wide parent GPT where you could share the link with parents, and it has a lot of that very important policy, student start times, all those things to communicate and create an additional bridge with parents who may have questions about their child's educational experience. To a more sophisticated end, I could also see teachers being able to upload full curriculums, right, of their course, and then creating AI tutors, or uploading a specific project and then having it being a companion for student. I see there being a world where, let's say you're a United States history teacher and you just upload the entire class curriculum, or you ask it to reference that, you can maybe create some really engaging lessons based on that. So imagine there being a text-based game that a teacher creates based on making decisions or scenarios with grounded in the curriculum that students are supposed to be taught on. So really pushes the level of learning there and the level of engagement, but the AI model will be trained on the curriculum. So those are some examples of some possibilities of things that we can really be set up here to enhance this. I think some other opportunities, thinking also about some of the privacy concerns, the variety in publishing and training options that they've mentioned here. So as I was able to highlight there, the fact that you can publish it just to yourself, publish it with just folks who have the link, and then publish it mass wide. I think gets us a step closer, right, to AI that is more private, AI that is more accommodating of privacy and sensitive data protocols, or being in the hands of sensitive users there. I think the fact too that you can uncheck some of these boxes to, um, not allow your model to be trained off of what the consumer of your GPT says. I think all of these things are a step closer. So again, I see there being like some attempts taken towards improving some of the privacy there. Some additional things coming up for me here. I think the user interface aspect of this, right? The fact that it's pretty easy to create a a GPT, as you all saw. Obviously, that the Fifth Flex Guru wasn't totally compliant with me at the end, but at a high level, you can kind of see how being able to answer a series of questions and go through, then eventually just hit publish. It's as easy as that to create, right? It doesn't require me to have any of that web development, coding experience, technical prowess, as I was mentioning before. And then finally, I think the last opportunity, as I've already mentioned a couple of times, so I'll save the long-winded explanation, is that app marketplace, as I've mentioned. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like when it goes. My hope is that folks making really great GPTs and us being able to share those will create breakthroughs in prompting and training and some of the tools that OpenAI continues to publish based on what they're noticing in their marketplace as well. Now let's transition to talk about the not so sexy part, but it's very important that we do, right? Which is the risks, because I do think there's some very valid risk as we look at GPTs as well. The first very logical risk is, what's the logical implementation in school? So right now, at least this is the only OpenAI is the only company I'm aware of that offers something similar to GPTs, at least within this very simplistic form. I'm not aware of any type of equivalent with with Claude or with Bard or anything like that, or with Google's models. And so but the logistical implementation, there's some very real barriers right now. The biggest barrier is that GPT is only available to Chat GPT Plus users. So that means it's hidden behind a paywall. You have to pay $20 a month or whatever it is to be able to access some of these GPTs. Which means if you're in a school right now and you're very excited about having all of your students being able to engage with the GPT you created, it's actually probably not possible right now unless you're creative about the way that you do it. Something such as, as I described with Word Dash, maybe you have an account, you're able to share your screen, you click the button, and then you're able to have students engage with the prompt that way. But having each individual student do it right now, that's going to be very difficult, especially given the time of the school year where a lot of schools are tied up already on their budgets and being able to invest in things like this. And again, just the implementation of having ChatGPT ubiquitously across the school where students are engaging and using it in that way. So right now, the use cases that are going to be applicable, like really applicable to schools and how we implement it, they're pretty limited because of this paywall, because of some of the privacy pieces that I've updated as well. Again, I would say also that OpenAI up to this point has also not announced any updates regarding like an educator or school plan for ChatGPT. I continue to hear from people mainly on LinkedIn who also do a lot of work with AI and investigating that ChatGPT still violates like federal policy around this. I'm to be honest, like I don't have like too many specific talking points about why. So I have more work to do myself around like really understanding where some of the privacy concerns exist, specifically with ChatGPT, given all of the strides that they've actually tried to make thus far, which I like see and can like acknowledge and recognize. But again, I think all of these things continue to create barriers to like real implementation. The last thing I think is that many users are going to create GPTs as we've seen. But what I get a little bit focused on as I just think about human theory here, if you will, is that a lot of folks are going to create GPTs. They're going to become very incentivized by like the monetary piece of the app store, and then I think they're going to focus on branding or marketing, and potentially that comes at a trade off for actually improving the GPT, right? Because I've already seen a lot of people on LinkedIn and other spaces that I engage with for folks who do a lot of AI work, where folks are like promoting some of their GPTs and say, "Hey, look what I created. This is great. This is phenomenal." But then when you actually go in and play with it, to me, it doesn't feel like there's been a lot of fine tuning that they've engaged with. It still feels very disjointed and clunky, and I become worried about a scenario where now, let's say that there's a paywall behind that. Let's say I have to pay $5 to even engage with somebody's GPT. I pay that $5. I'm engaging with it, and I just don't like it at all. And it's not at all what I thought it was going to be. The quality of that is very low. I could have just been engaging with the traditional ChatGPT and had that experience as well. So we'll have to see how ChatGPT chooses to monetize this, how they choose to allow folks to gain that. But I really also am hoping that in addition to us having this access to this now, that there's a very real push across, especially folks in the field who are early adopters to encourage folks to like improve their prompting, or just spending some time to fine tune this and really making sure that it meets the vision that you have for the tool, rather than it being some watered down version of what you had in your mind. Like really push yourself to get it to that quality. And the journey of getting to that high quality product, you will learn a lot about how these AI tools work, how you can prompt it to say something, and how it's not doing it or not doing it the way that you thought. And it's going to give you some more ideas about how to tinker your language and your directives to be able to do that. The last high level piece that I want to mention around some of the risks here, this is actually a threat more than a risk, is the note that they made around AI agents. I'm a little bit worried about this. I'm actually going to link an episode of a podcast that I really enjoy listening to. It's called Hard Fork. It's promoted by the New York Times. There's a couple of tech analysts there who engage in conversation around these, and they did a whole episode on GPTs as well. And they'd mentioned this same concern around the fact that GPTs are getting us like one step closer to AI agents. Now, just for some quick context on what an AI agent is, an AI agent is essentially an AI that is trained and prompted in the same way that some of these chatbots are, but it's going to continue to work. It's going to continue to operate even when you're not there, right? So we've seen a lot of like positive AI agent use cases recently, things such as like a lot of folks in the medical field who've developed agents to be able to search for, the combustion effects between drugs, or being able to search potential environmental factors for what causes, specific diseases or things like that. And obviously the value there is, if prompted and set up well, which of course I know the folks doing this work are taking a lot of time thinking about that, it's going to save them probably years of work related to, potential iterations of how things interact within the field, how they can, impact our society, the drugs that we use, the medicines that we use, the overall practices that we use. And being able to have an autonomous agent run that way really helps in those specific use cases. The idea for me of having AI agents, again, meaning fully autonomous AI, or at least mostly autonomous AI, where once you've done some of this initial setup and then it's just running, and this is like widespread across, the world. I get a little bit nervous about that, just because I think at this point, I don't know that as a society we've really done our due diligence to even do some of these other things, right? Of understanding how prompts work, understanding the use cases for AI, now getting closer to GPTs, understanding how these work and the impacts on our schools, our students as well, and getting closer to this world where we're getting fully autonomous AIs. It feels like there's a lot of challenges that can come up there that make me nervous. I will also publish a study that I mentioned about 10 episodes ago, done by Stanford, where they did this fully autonomous AI agent city. They essentially created like Sims, where they had all of these chatbots that individually they trained each one and gave it a personality, gave it qualities, they gave it values, gave it a job, and then they essentially had these Sims, if you will, interacting with each other nonstop for a long period of time within the city. And some of the behaviors that popped up were, I think, just very interesting and unexpected from the researchers. And again, I think that gives us a sense of what would happen if we have uh, widespread AI agents, which is we probably won't, we probably don't know what would happen, right? And so I think being able to rush down that road, especially when so many of us still are trying to learn these tools, I think is problematic at this point. Just before we close out here, I did want to send also just a quick resource that I'll link in our sheet as well, something that I think can be very helpful as you work with this. Um, there's a great article that Dr. Ethan Mullick from UPenn, I know I've referenced him a couple of times on this podcast and just some of the work that he's done. But I think what I really appreciated about his article here is I think he shared some similar perspectives that I was sharing around GPTs, and around the fact that there are still a lot of folks who are doing that initial launch but aren't really doing the work of like fine tuning, or maybe don't know how. And I think he shares some like really helpful suggestions here for how you can actually fine tune your GPTs, the way to engage and work with AI. So a couple of things that stood out for me, I won't, go through and read his whole article or anything like that. I'll link it so that you can review it if you're interested. But I think the importance of context. He really describes how, again, AI, and as you can see from this image here, AI is a mass, database of knowledge on a lot of different things. So the more you can give it context on, we are going to be talking less about these very creative, Shakespearean buckets, and we're going to be talking more logical analytical data buckets, and you ground it in that first, and then you get into some prompting. That has shown to be like very helpful in the quality of the responses that you get. He also shared a potential framework for structured prompting. So for folks who have a little bit less context on ways that you can do it, this was something he'd put together and shared here. Really thinking through your role and goal, making sure you're providing step-by-step instructions, any pedagogy, any constraints, and then personalization. And then again, he provided a very long prompts that you can reference here. So that's like one example of how you can do it. But the last note that I think I also appreciated was, even though he provided this like very long prompt, he also said like, hey, you don't have to feel all this pressure and stress about being able to create this long prompt if it feels too overwhelming. Really, the best way to like learn AI is to just use it. So even if you're typing in pretty simple prompts and you're then seeing what it gives you, and then you're providing more instructions, and then you're seeing what it gives you, and then you're providing more and you're seeing what it gives you, you're going to learn a lot about what you actually want in the beginning, and it's going to give you some more thoughts about what you value as you're developing something. So I'm going to link this as well, because I think this is a very helpful resource as some of you all may start to get out there and create your own GPTs. That being said, that's all I've got. Let me know what you think about GPTs and this type of episode, which is a little bit rare for the types of episodes we normally do here. Let me know by messaging me on LinkedIn. I'm excited to definitely continue sharing additional conversations later this month. Hope you have a great week. Thanks for listening to the AI Education Conversation. Give a follow, rate, and review wherever you listen. For all show notes and to share your thoughts on today's episode, check out the AI Ed Convo on Twitter. See you next time.